Hi everyone, welcome to DFTW, a channel to see the world from a unique perspective. Please subscribe to the channel so you will not miss our daily uploads. Yesterday, we uploaded a video discussing the fall of Zhang Youxia, China's second highest-ranking military leader. Today we talk about why Beijing is tightening its grip, what military anti-corruption really tells us about China's resolve on Taiwan. When news broke that Zhang Youxia, one of the highest-ranking figures in China's military, had been placed under investigation, many people were shocked. Some were confused. Others rushed to frame it as elite infighting, palace politics, or even a sign of instability inside the People's Liberation Army. But if we step back and look at the bigger picture, that interpretation misses the point entirely. What we are seeing is not chaos. It is preparation. And more specifically, it is preparation around China's most important unresolved historical task, national reunification with Taiwan. That was never just a political struggle. At the highest levels of power in China, the idea of a sudden coup or internal overthrow is largely a fantasy, popular online, but detached from reality, which we already emphasized in yesterday's video. When absolute authority is fully consolidated, power struggles don't look like revolutions. They look like systematic cleanups, just as we clean our computers' C or D drives. Zhang Youxia's investigation is not about factional rivalry. He was regarded as one of Xi Jinping's closest friends, and his loyalty should not be an issue. We talked about this yesterday, so we will not elaborate on it today. His fall, instead, is about risk management. Before a state undertakes a mission of historic magnitude, one that affects sovereignty, national security, and the long-term trajectory of the country, such as reunification with Taiwan, it does what any country would do. It removes uncertainty. The official language used by Xinhua is revealing. Zhang Youxia and another senior officer, Liu Zhenli, were accused not only of corruption but of violating the military commission chairman's responsibility system and damaging the political ecology and combat readiness of the armed forces. That's not incidental wording. That's the language of pre-operation discipline. In other words, Zhang Youxia was not supportive of reuniting with Taiwan in the near future, against Xi Jinping's will. As we mentioned before, Xi Jinping is getting old, and he cannot live to 150 years old, as he joked with Putin in September 2025. He has to start the work now if he is unwilling to leave the historical glory of reuniting with Taiwan to the new generation of leaders. Since the 18th Party Congress, military anti-corruption in China has been relentless, like sweeping the floor now and then. Entire networks were dismantled. Procurement scandals were exposed. Senior generals fell one after another. But Zhang Youxia stood untouched for years. Most people believed he was Xi Jinping's best friend, so that he would be safe from a purge. That alone sent a dangerous signal inside the system, that there might be a ceiling to anti-corruption, that certain positions or backgrounds conferred immunity. The previous purges of Xiao and Guobuxiong several years ago were regarded as palace politics, and they did not mean that the military purge has no forbidden zones. However, Zhang Youxia and Xi Jinping belong to the same faction, so his fall delivered a different message. It also shows that China's anti-corruption is not merely a political struggle and has no limits. Such a consensus is important in wartime planning. Corruption is not just about money, it is about loyalty, reliability, and control. A corrupt officer is compromised. A compromised officer is vulnerable. And a vulnerable officer is a liability in any conflict involving external intelligence agencies, psychological warfare, or internal sabotage. Recent global events have only reinforced this lesson. Corruption is a national security threat, not a side issue. Look at what has happened elsewhere. Russia's experience in Ukraine has shown, in brutal clarity, how corruption hollows out military effectiveness, including fake readiness reports, missing equipment, inflated contracts, and untrained troops. On paper, everything looks fine. On the battlefield, it collapses. Russians are not like their grandfathers in the World War II fighting Germany and Japanese troops. As we said in yesterday's video, Xi Jinping is scared when he sees how the Russian army performed in the Ukraine war. We can also consider the case of Venezuela's leadership being flown to the United States, a catastrophe due to betrayal from within, betrayal rooted in corruption. These are not abstract lessons. They are real-world case studies being analyzed in Beijing. From this perspective, Zhang Youxia's removal is not too late. The timing is good. Not because corruption was just discovered, but because the country's tolerance for any risk has dropped to zero. If we compare the timeline of the Ukraine war with China's military purge, the result is shocking. Putin's dilemma in the Ukraine war forces Xi Jinping to reshuffle the Chinese army. One question keeps coming up: if Zhang Youxia was corrupt, why wasn't he removed earlier? The answer is simple and uncomfortable for some observers: because the cost-benefit calculation has changed. A national leader can tolerate a corrupt official for a long time, just as the Qianlong emperor of the Qing dynasty allowed He Shun, the most infamous corrupt official in Chinese history, whose name has become shorthand in Chinese culture for extreme corruption, to help manage his country for several decades. He Shun was a gift from the Qianlong emperor to his son, the Jiaqing emperor, who confiscated He Shun's wealth immediately after the death of the Qianlong emperor. In China, a loyal, corrupt official can survive a purge for a long time if he does not oppose the big boss. Zhang Youxia was a good example when he aligned with President Xi Jinping, but he was also unlucky when he ran against his boss. There are moments when stability matters more than purity. And there are moments when purity becomes non-negotiable. China is entering the latter phase. Official policy on Taiwan has not changed. What has changed is the level of urgency. Beijing has always insisted that peaceful reunification is preferred, but it has never renounced the use of force. The 2005 anti-secession law made that explicit. The 2022 white paper further clarified that external interference and separatist moves would not be tolerated indefinitely. What we are seeing now is not rhetoric escalating, it is institutional alignment accelerating. Reunification is not a policy option. It is a core mission. From Beijing's perspective, Taiwan is not a foreign policy issue. It is not even primarily a military issue. It is a legitimacy issue. Territorial integrity sits at the heart of modern Chinese statehood. Every major narrative, national rejuvenation, historical humiliation, sovereignty, and the post-1949 legitimacy of the PRC, converges on Taiwan. That is why reunification is framed not as a choice, but as a historical inevitability. And inevitabilities require preparation, not debate. In that context, any senior figure who hesitates, equivocates, or introduces uncertainty, whether through corruption, divided loyalties, or institutional inertia, becomes an obstacle. Obstacles must be removed, and Zhang Youxia had become one of those obstacles. After Zhang's investigation was announced, some commentators claimed the PLA would be thrown into disarray, that removing such a senior figure would leave a leadership vacuum, weaken command structures, or delay reunification plans. Those anchors do not know how modern centralized systems function. Highly centralized authority does not become paralyzed when individuals are removed. It becomes more efficient. Decision-making bottlenecks disappear. Ambiguity disappears. Resistance disappears. If Beijing truly intended to abandon reunification, there would be no reason to take on the internal risk of removing someone like Zhang Youxia. The safer path would be inertia. If one does nothing, he never makes mistakes. The fact that Zhang Youxia was ousted tells us the opposite. The Chinese military is the decisive variable in China's strategic environment. It is the tool that underwrites diplomacy, leaders' intervention, and enforces red lines. If reunification is the core mission, then the PLA must be politically unified, operationally disciplined, structurally loyal, and psychologically prepared. Although it does not mean war is imminent tomorrow, it does mean the pace of reunification is accelerating. China is moving from a phase of signaling and shaping to one of capability assurance. That is, if a decision is made, execution will not fail due to internal weaknesses. That alone marks a qualitative shift. In politics, words can be walked back. Institutions cannot. To China's domestic audiences, the message is discipline and confidence, no one is above the mission. To the Chinese People's Liberation Army, the message is absolute, loyalty and cleanliness are prerequisites, not options. To separatist forces in Taiwan, the message is that tolerance and patience are not unlimited. And to external forces, especially the United States, the message is that Beijing is not improvising. It is methodically clearing the runway. Many people focus on speeches, drills, or media narratives. But the most important signals in politics are often the quietest. They come in the form of personnel decisions. They come in the form of institutional restructuring. They come in the form of who is removed, not who is promoted. Seen through that lens, Zhang Youxia's downfall is not a distraction from the Taiwan issue. It is part of it. China is not rushing or panicking, it is aligning. An alignment only happens when leadership believes that the decisive phase of a long historical process is approaching. Whether that moment arrives in 2026 or 2027 is secondary. What matters is this: the resolve is no longer theoretical. Reunification, in Beijing's view, is being prepared for, not for debates.